welcome to this week's CodeX group meeting. Thank you for joining us. We have the founder and CEO of Deon here joining us today. That's Daniele Parla. So with that, welcome, Daniele. We'll turn it over to you. You have about 10-15 minutes to give us an overview, and then we'll use the rest of our time just for Q&A.
Okay, so
over to you, Daniele.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you very much for having me today, and thank you all for attending this event. My name is Daniele Parla. As a professional background, I'm a lawyer, and I am co-founder and the CEO of Deon, Italian-based legal tech startup. I'm here today to present you DeonLang. DeonLang is a DSL, a domain-specific language based on deontic logic. For those of you who are not familiar with deontic logic, deontic logic is a branch of the modal formal logic, which basically aims at formalize and govern the reasoning within the legal domain. So like logic is the set of rules governing the reasoning, deontic logic is the set of rules governing the reasoning within the legal domain. Basically, what deontic logic states is that whatever content you might encounter in a clause, in a text of law or whatever, that content can always be classified as either an obligation or a permission or a prohibition, or combination among them, which will generate omission or option. So whatever you read in a clause, in a text of law, whatever will be in terms of content, of legal content, the deontic logic teach us that you can always look at this as one of those called basic deontic modalities. So the intuition at that time was to see whether there was any way to put in common the set of these rules with LLM, with the foundation models. And the quickest way was coming up with a brand new language, the so-called DeonLang, which was which aims to share the deontic logic with foundational model. So foundation model LLMs are really good in dealing with the language, and the idea is to embed that logic into DeonLang, into this language. Let me show you what these look like, just super quickly. Okay, I think you should be looking at this. Okay, so this is basically DeonLang. Here we have apologies. Okay. Here we have a termination clause, termination for convenience. Either party may terminate the disagreement at any time, either without cause, providing 30 days written notice to the other party. Termination for breach, the party may terminate the disagreement immediately upon written notice if the other party commits a material breach, and so on and so forth. So what we do here, we take the natural language and we formalize according to the rules of DeonLang. So if the party becomes P1, which is the agent of this proposition, has the option to terminate a disagreement and Boolean operator for this reason, with or without cause, and in this time, at any time, and in this time framework, 30 days with a notice to the other party. Termination for breach, that's how we construe the condition.
Sorry, PT, I don't know who PT is, but we're getting some background noise here. Could you please all put yourself on mute?
So, as I said, I was saying this is how we construe the conditions. The other party commits material breach and does not, another Boolean operator, cure a breach, in this time, within 10 days of written notice from P3, the non-breaching party, then non-breaching party becomes the agent for the following part of the sentence. P1 non-breaching party has option to terminate disagreement in this time immediately upon written notice. So basically what we do, what DeonLang does, we formalize the common language according to some categories coming from the deontic logic and other form of logic like Boolean operators, so on and so forth. Why do we do that? Because in a world which is structured usually very, very vertical, when you have like common law versus civil law, Italian law, commercial law, contract law, conveyancing, whatever. So everything is super vertical. We use the completely opposite approach, trying to uplifting the common language into categories which are general and universal by definition, because those are logic categories, right? So these render DeonLang jurisdiction agnostic. This means that we apply this approach to whatever legal text, no matter what the governing law is, and of course it also render it agnostic to the language that we will be formalizing. DeonLang is protected by copyright. Then one important thing I want to show you is something that we consider to be like an intermediate layer, an add-on to whatever model you want to use, processing legal documents and legal text according to the rules governing DeonLang, which has its own grammar and its own syntax, of course. And now the real big question is, are we able to deliver on what we promise? Is DeonLang really able to somehow render the LLM more accurate when dealing with legal content? To this extent, we're gonna show you some tests that we have carried out using some embedding models. In this instance, we have used text embedding model, the 3 small and 3 large from OpenAI. And as you know much better than me, when you use an embedding model to calculate the semantic similarity score between two different terms, so two sentences here, this result is kind of deterministic. If you do this 10 times, you will always have the same semantic similarity scores. What we have done here, we have taken pairs of sentences in natural language and then translated into DeonLang. And we have calculated the similarity scores. As you can see here, similarity scores are very variable. I mean, they are really different among all the spectrum. And if you look, you have, for example, in the first pair of sentences in English, the lessee must pay the rent by 5th day of each month, and the tenant is obliged to pay the rent by 5th day of each month. You have this similarity score for this pair of sentences in plain English 0.90, and as translated in DeonLang, P1 lessee or obligation to pay a rent in this time, you have more or less the same, is 0.95. What is really striking is the difference in the second pair of sentences. The lessee must pay the rent by 5th day of each month versus the lessee may pay the rent by 5th day of each month. If you look at this in plain English, the similarity score is still quite high, 0.97, while drops to 0.71 when translated into DeonLang, because I mean, in terms of the overall sentence, these two sentences may seem to an LLM quite similar, while when we use the DeonLang translation, we put the focus where the focus should be from a legal or lawyer perspective, i.e. the obligation rather than the permission and else. So now just getting to want to show you a few use cases that we have. I should have a bit of time to show you some use cases that we have built around the DeonLang. The first one is some tool called Advanced Legal Reasoning, where we used the DeonLang plus the IRAC protocol, which is much better than I do, issue spotting, define the rule, apply the rule, and draw the conclusion, to build a tool for a major international law firm. Is It's a magic circle law firm with a global footprint. Basically, what this tool does is when you input like a contract or some legal text, policy, a regulation, so on and so forth, you will ask a complex question regarding to that text. The tool will give you a quite accurate, hopefully quite accurate answer by leveraging on the translation of the text in the DeonLang and the protocol of hierarchy. If you look at this, I mean, the law firm was quite interesting in this approach because, as you can imagine, they have several different jurisdictions and they also have documents in several different languages. If you look at this, where we were able to, they benchmarked the accuracy of our results against the most common LLM from OpenAI family, and we basically outperformed those LLMs under each circumstance. This is just to show the accuracy of the tool. Now I will show you two more different use cases. I mean, we have produced different use cases in this last 1 year, 1 year and a half. I mean, in the field of RegTech or also, of course, advanced legal reasoning and others similar to that. I want to show you two different use cases which, to my eyes, can give you the real sense of what you can do when you have something as versatile as a language. I mean, with the language you can describe things, you can carry out reasoning, so on and so forth. So the first use case I will show you, it's called the visualizer. Apologies. Okay. And okay. Okay, this is visualizer, where basically what we do, we take some legal text in natural language, we translated it into the DeonLang, and then we basically translate the DeonLang into some graph with where we attribute a different shape or different color to any individual DeonLang element. So if you look at this, party A must deliver goods to party B. You have the DeonLang translation P1, party A has obligation to deliver to P2, which is party B. Then if you drag and drop from left to right the pieces of the graph, you can see here you have party B must deliver to party A. So basically the idea is to create something that will allow the user to draft or interact with the clause not only by typing on your keyboard, but just simply interacting with the graphic visualization of the legal text. Why we can do that? Because the DeonLang allow the translation not only of the content of the clause, but also the legal and the logical structure of the clause. So let's do this with something a bit more complicated. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is a bit more complicated clause. We will translate it into DeonLang. First, apologies. Okay, as you can see, we have the entire clause translated into DeonLang. So the clause is subject to clause 1 and notwithstanding any terms of finance documents, if any party assigns or transfer any of its right, blah, 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 blah. So basically what we can do here, we can basically change, for example, here, finance document, we want to get rid of these. We just cancel it. We want to get rid of fees. We do that. Costs. We do that. We want to have pay and reimburse. Okay, let's apply it, or I don't know, here, other amounts, sorry. And then in finance documents, let's, for example, make an exception in Italia, eccezione dell'atto di pegno. Ask the assistant. So in a different language, we ask the assistant to have it, and then basically we will apply all the amendments, and you have the new version of the clause, where you have subject to clause 25 without reference to any other terms of finance documents, where you don't have the fees and costs any longer, where you have a reference to pledge, to the pledge agreement, which we inserted in Italian. So this is first use case. Second use case, if I still have a couple of minutes, it's about something that we have done for an Italian authority. It's called. I mean, we have basically processed the entire database of an Italian authority, which is public, and the Italian authority is called ACF, which is the Italian Ombudsman, financial Ombudsman, where they have authority to deal with claims, retail claims against financial institution up to 500K. They have been around for 8 years. They have issued something like 8,000 different decisions. We have taken each of those decisions and we have extracted all different category of data, such for example, identification of decision, subject matter of the dispute, facts, procedural steps, claim of the claimants, violation, evidence, damages, defense, arguments, ratio decidendi, and of course output, whether this was approved or rejected. And all those data, we have converted them into JSON keys, and within the JSON keys, we have translated all the narrative from natural language into DeonLang. So what we have done, we have taken something like 8,000 decisions. Each decision is more or less something like 10 pages of completely unstructured data, because those decisions are basically PDF documents. And we have transformed them in superstructured data, if you want, vertically using the JSON keys and the JSON structure, and horizontally using the DeonLang translation. What we have done, basically, we have all the 8,000 different decisions stored in this file here. Why have we done this? Because, of course, you can look at this like a model. If you want, each decision is facts plus legal reference plus evidence plus claim and defense plus ratio decidendi.
You only have 9 more minutes before we're at the end of our time.
Yeah, so absolutely. I will be super quick with that. Equal outcome, so rejection or approval, and why we have done this, I mean, because of course this will render the retrieval of information. If you look a new case, you want to see the most relevant precedent, super powerful, no? I mean, you can leverage on all the only elements. And the other things that we have done, if I have 30 more seconds to spend on this, we have used this approach, so the DeonLang translation, to create features for machine learning models. This is something I want to lastly show you on my presentation. Sorry. This is really the last thing. Okay. If you look, I mean, what we have done, as I said, we have leveraged on all the DeonLang elements, so defendants, so on and so forth, and the structure that I've shown you, to see whether there was any hidden pattern within the data set, no? That we were able to identify. And something really interesting came out, for example, in this case, which is the following. So when you have this piece of Italian legislation, which is Council Communication 2009, on illiquid assets, which is referred to into the final decision. So in the ratio decidendi, you have the probability ranking from 92% to 100% that that decision will be basically will be a positive decision, basically approving the claim. This is something quite interesting because, of course, this can allow predictive use of DeonLang in order to allow also litigators to make data-driven decision. On this, if we have still 20 more seconds, I will leave the word to Ivan Danesi, who is our data scientist, if it's here with us, to just show the last
yeah, but we have some people who have questions, and I would want to make sure you get to address those questions too.
Yeah, of course.
We try to close in time at 2. So, Ivan, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, just to say that, yes, just to say that on that data set that Daniele just described, we ran a classifier, and actually, as you can see, I mean, this product is under construction, but we obtained somehow a positive returns in terms of machine learning, and also does the other elements that is actually interpretable. I mean, in this case, we use Sharp that was together with the IGBM, but I mean, this is another fields of application than converting unstructured data and structured. For me, I mean, that's all. I mean, let's see the question you may have.
So, all right. So we have a number of questions. So first of all, Benjamin was asking you why did you decide to create your own language rather than using some existing languages?
So, as I said, I mean, the idea was that we wanted to leverage on the deontic logic. I mean, we as lawyers, we have this set of rules which has been long-standing because deontic logic has been invented in the 1950 around them. Okay, and so, as I said, the idea was to see whether we could share the logic. We wanted to embed the deontic logic into a language. LLM are really good in dealing with the language, so the idea was to have a language which was embedding the deontic logic.
And are you using the language model to do the theorem proving, or it's also part of that?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last question.
He's asking whether or not you used like a theorem prover SMT solver as opposed to using the logits of the language model to represent the logical inferences.
No, I mean, this is something that we also have started to analyze, because at the end of the day, also solver can be something that is theoretically viable. We have already done some research around that, but so far we use the language only as an intermediate layer between the legal text, the legal content, and the model. But I mean, I think the next frontier should be, as you were rightly saying, using solvers. Because you have a logic.
Yeah, Thorn was asking, whether you're auto-translating into the formal language. I think you answered that because that's what you do. So that's
we use LLM to do the translation. Okay, of course, how do we do the translation? We have our rule book. The rule book is covered by copyright, where in the rule book you have all the grammar rules and the syntax and whatever you need to translate natural language into the DeonLang.
Marcy's asking, how do you do the codification? How do you ensure there's no hallucinations in the codification?
This is in the informalization. It's a really interesting question. I mean, what we can say is that there's been like a recently published research from, I think it was University of Vienna or some Austrian university, Austrian institution, end of August this year, where they were basically addressing the ability of LLM to recognize deontic modalities, okay? And it's quite interesting because, I mean, we didn't know that this research was around. I don't think they even know that we are doing this, where basically the research was saying that the LLM is really highly capable in recognize the right deontic modality, okay, out from legal text. And they were even suggesting that this is something that someone one day should pursue and build some use case around it. So the answer is, yeah.
I actually know those guys. It's Marius Dinu,
Yeah.
who was at his wedding, actually. And
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
keep in touch with him and a bunch of the people from NeurIPS because I came back from NeurIPS last week.
Okay, okay. Oh, interesting. But then another way to look at this is that, I mean, at least from all the tests we have done, we don't think that a strict, okay, what is important sometimes, especially if you want to build some use cases, to have some kind of controlled syntax, okay? Because it helps you, for example, the retrieval kind of mechanism, right? But we don't need to have super strict rules in the sense that also from a semantic point of view, you can say the same things using different constructions, and so having these also freedom in translating is something that we have seen is not detrimental, and as then also proved by that research, usually we can say that the models are really good in understanding what is the appropriate deontic modality.
All right, so there's a lot more questions. Maybe let me pick one more. So hold on. Ansel was asking whether you could sort of quickly talk through one of the JSON lines that as an example. You showed some, yeah.
So, but in any case, here I leave just my contact details, telephone number, and email, so you can reach me out whenever you want, of course.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so this is basically this decision. Sorry, this is in Italian. Let's get to the translated one. Okay, where basically here you have the keys of the JSON are the information areas, okay, facts, procedural steps, so on and so forth, claims, evidence, damages, and so forth. And then all the narrative within that keys is translated to the DeonLang. If you can see here, for example, claimant is always CL1, while defendant is D1. I mean, this is the DeonLang formalization for claimant and defendant. And this is super interesting because when you do, for example, retrieval, okay, of information, you can use this syntax. I mean, you can leverage on the syntax to find relevant information. And for example, this is a way. This is also important to somehow cut off or cut out all the noise. For whatever information is not strictly legally relevant, because as we said, we put the focus where the focus matters, i.e. on the part of the content which matters from a legal perspective or a lawyer perspective.
Okay, great. So a lot more questions. So, but we're unfortunately out of time. We have to close here. But thank you for sharing your contact information. So anyone in the group who has more questions about Deon and Daniele's and Ivan's work, please reach out directly to Daniele. And this is very cool. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you.
And good luck. It sounds like you already have some real world use cases and customers. And so that's great. And we appreciate you sharing it with our group here at CodeX. I don't know if you had a chance to go through some of the other questions, but I think it'd be great if you could sort of like connect with some of those folks who
with great pleasure.
And I really appreciate you. So quick round of applause. And folks, I think that's the last session of this year. Obviously, we are headed into our Christmas holiday. It was a great series of group meetings. I really appreciate this community, and it's an amazing brain trust we have here at CodeX. And people are always coming in with amazing questions and points they're raising. So really treasure this community. I hope you all will have a wonderful holiday season, and I very much look forward to connecting with you all in the new year. All right. Again, thank you to the speakers. Thank you to all of you. And
Thank you very much.
and everyone have a wonderful holiday.